I heard the glass clink before I felt the heat in my face. Not from anger, from embarrassment. Shame, really. It was that kind of silence that only happens after someone says something they can't take back. You know the one, where the air freezes, time stretches, and every pair of eyes in the room lands on you like you're some pathetic zoo exhibit. I stood there, still holding the bottle of wine I was offering, like some idiot butler who missed the punchline. That's when she said it, loud enough to carry over the music. Take him. He's just trouble. You can have him. Everyone laughed. Everyone but me. No, I didn't throw the bottle. I didn't shout. I didn't even blink. I just set it down, quietly, on the edge of the table, next to the tiny vegan tartlets no one touched, and turned around. One foot in front of the other. Step, step, step. Like I was walking out of my own skin. I didn't take my coat. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask if she was serious, because I already knew. The hallway outside our apartment complex was dead silent, dimly lit, smelled faintly of floor cleaner and old air. I stood there, hand on the railing, trying to figure out if this was the moment I'd remember years from now as the end. Then I heard heels behind me. Click, click, click. I didn't turn around. Her voice came soft. I can't believe she said that. I still didn't move. She came up beside me, arms crossed, looking out at the parking lot like we were watching a storm roll in. Ashlyn, my wife's friend, the one who said, 5 minutes earlier, "You're lucky to have him." And then Darcy, my wife, laughed. Not just laughed. Laughed like the idea of someone being lucky to have me was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. Laughed like I was disposable. Ashlyn was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "If it makes you feel better, I'm leaving too." That made me turn. Her eyes were steady, not flirty, not joking, just calm, certain. I shook my head. "Is this a pity thing?" "No," she said. "It's a clarity thing." And without another word, she walked down the stairs, heels clicking, and I stood there, completely untethered from whatever life I thought I was living 20 minutes ago. I didn't know where she was going. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew I wasn't going back in. Not after that. And definitely not after what would happen next. Ashlyn didn't say where she was going, and I didn't ask. I just followed. We walked down the block in silence. The kind of silence that isn't heavy, but loaded, like a match dangling near gasoline. My fingers were twitching from the cold or the adrenaline. I wasn't sure. What I was sure of was that something about tonight felt off script. And not in a spontaneous, movie scene way. In a this is about to get dark kind of way. She stopped 2 blocks down, just outside a parked car I didn't recognize. She tapped her key fob, and the lights blinked. "Get in," she said, opening the driver's side. "Where are we going?" She looked at me like the answer should have been obvious. "Someplace quiet. You look like you're about to break." I didn't argue. We drove without music, which was somehow worse. The streetlights flashed rhythmically across the dashboard, slicing the silence into pieces. Every time I thought about what Darcy said back there, "Take him. He's just trouble," I felt like I was being peeled. Ashlyn finally spoke after a few minutes. "You know, Darcy says a lot of things when she's trying to be funny. But that wasn't funny. That was cruel." I didn't reply. She went on. "She's been different lately, hasn't she? Less interested. More cold." Still, I said nothing. Then she turned her head toward me and added, "And you've been letting her." That hit harder than Darcy's joke. I turned to her, jaw tight. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ashlyn didn't blink. "It means you've been showing up for someone who stopped seeing you. You think if you keep being good enough, she'll start appreciating it again. She won't." I didn't want to hear this. Not from her. Not tonight. "I'm not here for therapy," I said. "Good," she said flatly. "Because that's not what this is." We pulled into the parking lot of a small coffee shop that had long since closed. She didn't turn off the engine, just let it idle. The humming filled the silence. Then she said something I still don't fully understand. "You need to see something." From her coat pocket, she pulled out her phone, unlocked it, scrolled, and handed it to me. It was a video. My hands hesitated before hitting play. What I saw made my stomach turn sideways. It was filmed a few weeks ago. A party, some rooftop gathering I wasn't invited to. The camera angle was slightly tilted, probably taken by someone holding it low. But the audio was clear. Darcy was in the shot, laughing, a drink in her hand. She was leaning way too close to a guy I didn't recognize. Tall, tan, arms around her waist like it was casual. Too casual. She didn't push him away. She leaned in. Then came her voice. "My husband? Oh, he's harmless. He wouldn't even notice. I paused it. My chest felt like it was caving in. I looked at Ashlyn. Why do you have this? Her face was unreadable. Because I was there. And I hated it. And I wanted to show you before things got worse. I shook my head slowly. Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? She looked at me for a long moment, then said, because I was her friend. Until I realized she doesn't respect you. Or anyone. She's not who you think she is. The cold suddenly felt sharper. Why tell me now? I asked. Why tonight? Ashlyn hesitated. Her voice dropped. Because tonight was a test, she said. And she failed it on purpose. I think she wanted you to walk away. My thoughts were racing. My wife wanted me to walk away. She's been talking about an exit plan, Ashlyn added. Not in those exact words, but she's been setting the stage. Making you look like the distant one. The unstable one. I felt dizzy. So what? I'm the fall guy in her breakup story. Ashlyn didn't answer. She didn't have to. I sat there, stunned, staring out at the street beyond the windshield, trying to count how many signs I had missed. How many chances I had to confront things. How many times I chose silence instead of friction. And how easily I'd been erased. Not with violence, not with betrayal, but with laughter. I had no idea yet just how far Darcy had gone. But I was about to find out. I didn't sleep. Ashlyn offered to let me crash at her place. I said no. She offered again. Still no. It wasn't about pride. I just needed to walk. To breathe. To be alone with the kind of thoughts that aren't fit for company. The streets were quiet, cold, and completely unbothered by my little life coming undone. I must have walked 5, maybe 6 miles that night. No jacket. Just raw confusion and one echoing line that wouldn't leave my head. My husband? Oh, he's harmless. He wouldn't even notice. She was right. I hadn't noticed. Not until now. And maybe that made me pathetic. By 5:30 a.m., my legs were shaking and my phone was dead. I made my way back to the apartment, unsure what I'd say or do. I wasn't angry. Not yet, just hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything I used to be and replaced it with fog. The hallway smelled like spilled wine and cheap perfume. Someone had left a pair of heels outside our door. Not Darcy's. Someone else's. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder this time. Footsteps shuffled. The lock clicked. And then there she was, Darcy, wrapped in a blanket, makeup smudged, hair wild, blinking at me like I was a stranger who'd shown up at the wrong address. You're back, she said flatly. I stepped inside without answering. The place looked trashed. Dishes everywhere. Wine stains on the rug. Pillows on the floor. Someone's phone charger plugged in by the couch that wasn't ours. She closed the door behind me, slowly. I turned to face her. You didn't call, I said. You didn't text. You walked out, she said, like that made it fair. And you let me, I replied. You let me walk out like I was a delivery guy who overstayed his welcome. She rubbed her eyes, sighed, and sank into the couch like the weight of conversation exhausted her. I'm tired, Nolan. Can we not do this now? Something inside me cracked. Not in a dramatic, shouting way. Just quietly, like a floorboard finally giving after years of pressure. Is there someone else? I asked. She hesitated. That 1-second pause told me everything. Before she could answer, I heard movement from the hallway. Light footsteps. I turned instinctively, and that's when a man walked out of our bedroom. No shirt, just jeans. Stretching, yawning, like he belonged. He froze when he saw me. I froze when I saw him. Darcy didn't move. I looked at her. Really? She stood, suddenly alert. This is not what you think. That sentence. That absurd, overused sentence, I think I laughed. I don't remember exactly, but something about it made me hysterically calm. You brought someone home the same night I walked out. I asked. She snapped. Don't act like you were some innocent victim. You've been emotionally gone for months, Nolan. I blinked. So your solution was to replace me hours later? I didn't plan this, she shouted. It just happened. The guy, still standing awkwardly, muttered, maybe I should go. Maybe you should have never come, I replied, voice still cold. He grabbed his shirt off a chair and disappeared back into the bedroom. I turned to Darcy again. And then came the real betrayal. She said, you left me humiliated. You left me at my own party. You embarrassed me in front of my friends. I stared at her, stunned. You humiliated me. You made a joke out of me in front of everyone. You told your friend to take me like I was a broken appliance you couldn't return. She didn't flinch. Because I was pushing you to leave. And you did. So I thought that meant we were over. I stood there in our wrecked living room, the place we used to eat takeout on the floor during movie nights, the place we decorated together, argued in, celebrated anniversaries in, and suddenly it all felt like a lie. Not just the infidelity, but the rewriting of history. She wanted me to be the villain in her version of the story. She needed me to break so she could feel justified in what she was doing. I walked toward the door. Darcy didn't stop me. But just as I was about to leave, she said one last thing. Don't make this dramatic, Nolan. You're not a victim. You're just a placeholder. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I walked out, slower this time, like every step was being carved into stone. And the worst part? I didn't even know where I was going, until I saw Ashlyn's car pull into the lot. She rolled down the window and just said, "Get in." No questions. No pity. Just her, waiting. And that's when something clicked. Darcy's story wasn't the only one being rewritten. Mine was about to begin. Ashlyn didn't speak as I got into the passenger seat. She just put the car in park and handed me a coffee she must have grabbed on the way. Black. No sugar. Just how I take it. I don't even remember telling her that. We sat there for a full minute, the windows fogging slightly, the heater whispering through the vents. It wasn't until I set the cup down in the holder and muttered, "There was a guy," that she nodded slowly. "I figured," she said. "You look like someone who just got hit by something heavy." I exhaled through my nose and stared straight ahead. She said I was a placeholder. Ashlyn flinched like that word physically hit her. That's cold, even for her. "You said she's been planning something," I said. "Tell me everything." Ashlyn didn't hesitate. "She's been rewriting the story for a while," she said. "At work, with friends, telling people you've been distant, that you don't support her career, that you're emotionally disconnected." I didn't think much of it at first. People vent. But then she started dropping hints about separating, about you being checked out. And that's when I knew something was off. "She's setting the stage," I said bitterly. "So when the truth comes out, she looks like the one who tried everything." Ashlyn nodded. "Exactly. She's not stupid. She knows how to shape a narrative." I leaned back in the seat. "So now what? She gets to play the victim, and I just disappear quietly?" Ashlyn turned toward me, eyes sharp. "Not if you're ready to fight smart." There was a pause. Then she added, "I have access to her internal calendar." I blinked. "What?" "She uses the shared calendar app at work. No one else really checks it, but I do sometimes for scheduling." I saw a pattern. Ashlyn pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and handed it to me. It showed a list of recurring events, most of them labeled vaguely: strategy sync, vendor review, off-site follow-up. "She's not in marketing meetings during these blocks," Ashlyn said. "She's meeting someone else. And not just anyone." I checked the building addresses. They match up with where her boss, Kellen, lives. My stomach tightened. "Wait, she's cheating with her boss." Ashlyn nodded once. "I'm almost sure." That name hit like acid. I'd only met Kellen once. Tall guy, beard, smug handshake. He'd complimented Darcy's work in that way that felt more like branding than sincerity. She talked about him often, always with this defensive edge, like she needed to prove his approval meant something. I looked out the window, replaying every moment over the past year where she came home late. Every time she said, "We grabbed dinner after," or "The campaign is under pressure," or "You wouldn't understand, it's a nonprofit thing." Ashlyn continued, "I've also seen text previews pop up on her lock screen when we were in meetings. Nothing explicit, but enough to raise eyebrows. And the weird part? She always flips her phone face down when I'm around now." I clenched my jaw. "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know for sure," she said, "but I'd guess months. Maybe longer." My brain was sprinting while my body stayed completely still. "So why are you helping me?" I finally asked. "What do you get out of this?" Ashlyn didn't smile, didn't flirt. Her answer was blunt. "Because I don't like people who destroy others and pretend they're the victim. And because I've seen how hard you've tried. You were never the problem." I swallowed hard. That shouldn't have meant so much. But it did. "What are you thinking?" I asked. Ashlyn's expression shifted, calm but dangerous. "I'm thinking you don't expose her. Not yet. I'm thinking we watch her. Document everything. Let her bury herself. You don't get revenge by making a scene. You get it by making a statement." A bitter laugh escaped my throat. "You're scary." She looked me dead in the eye. "I'm effective." That morning, we set a plan in motion. Ashlyn would keep track of Darcy's calendar. She'd quietly monitor internal chats, location check-ins, off-hours meetings. Meanwhile, I'd start backing up everything at home, shared files, financial records, even the shared credit card where her hotel charges might appear. It felt strange, like I was switching roles. No longer the husband begging for scraps of affection. Now I was the man watching from the shadows, finally wide awake to the truth that had been tapping on my shoulder for months. Before Ashlyn dropped me off, she said one last thing. If you catch her, and I mean catch her, you won't need to say a word. She'll out herself. And she was right. Because exactly 4 days later, Darcy made a mistake that exposed everything. And it started with a dinner reservation. I wasn't supposed to see. I wasn't looking for it. That's the worst part. I wasn't snooping through her purse or checking her texts. I was standing at the kitchen counter, trying to make some space in the drawer where we keep all the random junk, expired coupons, broken pens, batteries that no one knows are dead, when I saw the envelope. It wasn't sealed, just folded. A receipt from 2 nights ago, and that was the first twist. Because 2 nights ago, Darcy told me she was at a strategy dinner with the creative director and one of their new interns. She came home late, said the conversation dragged on forever. She smelled like expensive cologne, but I was too tired to connect the dots. Or maybe I just didn't want to. But the receipt told a different story. It was from a place called Belmare, a sleek, modern seafood restaurant on the waterfront. The kind of place with valet service and bottle service. Not exactly where you'd bring interns. 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, dessert for 2, and the reservation name? Kellen. It hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. I stared at the paper, rereading every line like maybe I'd missed something. But there it was, clear as day. Not a dinner meeting, a dinner date. I snapped a photo and slid the original back where I found it. No confrontation. No confrontation yet. Instead, I called Ashlyn. She picked up on the second ring. I think we just caught her, I said. 10 minutes later, she was at my door, hair pulled back, no makeup, wearing a look I'd never seen on her before. Focused, unflinching, and strangely protective. I handed her the photo of the receipt. Her eyes scanned it quickly. Belmare? Classy. Kellen's name is on it, I added. Ashlyn exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Then that confirms it. I nodded. I'm done waiting. I want to catch them. In person. Ashlyn didn't flinch. Then we do it right. The next 24 hours were a blur of quiet planning. We cross-checked Darcy's calendar. Another late meeting was conveniently blocked off for the following night, in the exact same time slot. Ashlyn pinged one of her contacts at work to verify. Darcy was not scheduled for any after-hours meetings. That's when Ashlyn showed me something else. Her phone. Screenshots. It was a group text between Darcy and 3 women from work. They weren't even trying to hide it. One message from Darcy said, "If Nolan asks, I'm stuck at the donor briefing. LOL. I'll be with Kay." Another said, "Girl, you're playing with fire." And Darcy replied, "Let it burn." My stomach dropped. All this time, I'd been telling myself maybe it was emotional. Maybe a misguided friendship. Maybe a lapse in judgment. But this was intentional. Calculated. Smug. Ashlyn placed a hand gently on my shoulder. "Still want to see it for yourself?" I nodded. More than ever. The next evening, we waited. Not in some private investigator van. Just Ashlyn's car, parked 2 blocks from Belmare, windows slightly cracked, music off. I kept my hood up, sinking low in my seat. Ashlyn wore sunglasses even though the sun was nearly gone. We watched people go in and out, couples mostly. Lots of laughter. Sparkling dresses. Candlelight reflecting on windows. And then, right on time, Darcy arrived. Hair curled. New dress. Heels I'd never seen before. She looked radiant. Not the tired woman I'd seen collapse on our couch the last few nights. No, this version of her was energized, alive, almost giddy. She met Kellen out front. He handed the valet his keys. Then he kissed her on the cheek. Not the awkward, hesitant kind. The kind that comes from practice. My jaw tightened. My fingers dug into the fabric of my jeans. I don't know what I expected. Maybe shock. Maybe rage. But what I felt was colder. Clarity. All the pieces were finally arranged on the board. No more guesswork. No more assumptions. They went inside. Ashlyn turned to me. "Do you want to go in?" I shook my head. "No. I want her to think I still don't know. That's the only way this works." Ashlyn looked impressed. "You're learning." We didn't stay much longer. Just long enough to snap a few photos. Time-stamped. Clear. Undeniable. Back home, I made 2 copies. One for me, one for someone else. Because now, it wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about leverage. And tomorrow, I'd be meeting with someone who had even more to lose than I did. Darcy's boss, Kellen's wife. I didn't know what she looked like, not exactly. I'd only seen glimpses of her on Darcy's old social media before everything started getting locked down. Her name was Camille. That much I remembered. I also remembered that she'd been at the same company fundraiser last year, standing beside Kellen while Darcy referred to her as just a bored executive wife. I hadn't thought much of it back then. Now, every little remark took on new meaning. Ashlyn had the connection. She told me Camille and Kellen weren't exactly on great terms, even before this. Separate vacations, cold meetings, no kids, no official split, but no spark left either. A facade. I expected resistance, suspicion, maybe even a slap. But when Ashlyn reached out through a mutual friend, the response came within 10 minutes. Where and when? That alone told me everything. We met at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. The kind of place where no one asked questions and the booths were high enough to disappear into. I sat in the corner, hands sweating inside my jacket sleeves, clutching the folder of evidence I printed the night before, screenshots, calendar logs, restaurant photos, timestamps, the receipt. And then she walked in. Camille was tall, poised. Nothing about her said scorned. She wasn't dramatic or flustered. She didn't even wear sunglasses like they do in movies. She was calm, polished, and somehow more intimidating because of it. The kind of woman who had been waiting for someone like me to appear. Nolan, she asked, her voice perfectly steady. I stood. Yeah. She sat opposite me, ordered a tea without looking at the menu, and then folded her hands. Let's see it, she said. No hesitation. I slid the folder across. She didn't rush through it. She took her time, page by page. No reaction on her face. Not even when she got to the photo of Kellen kissing my wife outside Belmare. When she finished, she closed the folder gently, ran one manicured finger along the edge, and said, I suspected. But this is thorough. Your husband's been seeing my wife behind my back for months, I said, almost flatly. She's trying to paint me as the emotionally absent one so she can exit cleanly. He's her boss. She thinks she'll land softly, maybe even with a promotion. Camille didn't blink. She won't. That answer surprised me. What do you mean? She leaned forward slightly. Kellen has a morals clause in his executive contract. Romantic involvement with a subordinate, if documented, is grounds for immediate termination. No payout. No reference. No grace. I stared at her. You're serious? I have a copy of the contract. I helped write the first draft when he was negotiating the job. And guess who advised the board back then? I shook my head, stunned. She smiled, just faintly. Me. I'm on the board. Now I understood the stillness. The certainty. Camille wasn't just waiting. She'd been building her own silent war room. Why haven't you acted? I asked. Because I needed him to think I was still disengaged. He thinks I'm oblivious, she replied. But I wanted more than just a betrayal. I wanted leverage. A clean exit. And now, thanks to you, I have it. There was a long pause as the two of us sat there, strangers united by betrayal. Then she said something I hadn't expected. I'm not interested in revenge, she said. That's for people with time to waste. What I want is control. I want the story to go my way. I nodded slowly. Same here. Camille opened her handbag and pulled out a slim envelope. She slid it across the table like she was tipping a waiter. What's this? Contact card. Divorce mediator. Private. Discreet. Expedited. When you're ready. I took it. Do I owe you anything? I asked. She smiled. Only silence. When Kellen's contract is terminated next week, your wife will find herself without a protector. That's your moment. Use it wisely. We parted without shaking hands. There was no need. Ashlyn was waiting in her car around the corner. How'd it go? She asked. I stared out the window, fingers tapping the card against my knee. She's colder than Darcy, I said, and 10 times more dangerous. Ashlyn smirked. My kind of woman. I didn't laugh. Not this time. Because I knew what was coming next. Darcy was about to lose everything she'd carefully constructed. Her story, her lover, her backup plan. And I was going to be the one standing quietly at the center of the storm, with nothing to hide, and everything documented. But before that happened, I had one more thing to do. One final twist to set up. and it involved inviting Darcy's mother over for brunch. Sunday morning felt too bright, too clean, like the sun itself had no idea the day was about to go nuclear. Darcy always insisted on family touchpoints, little moments of performative closeness to keep up appearances. So once every few months, we'd host brunch for her mother, Nadine. I used to dread them. Nadine never liked me. Thought I was too quiet, too passive, too soft. Once, she actually said I had no real fire in my eyes. Now I was counting on that. I sent the invitation myself, from Darcy's phone, while she was in the shower 3 days ago. Told Nadine we were having a last-minute brunch, just us three. She responded immediately, about time. She always came early. Always dressed like she was auditioning for a daytime courtroom drama. And she always brought her judgment like a side dish. The difference this time? Ashlyn was watching from a car parked across the street, and Camille's legal team was already reviewing Kellen's contract. All the pieces were in motion. I laid out brunch like normal. Eggs, fruit, mimosas Darcy never actually drank. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Darcy walked in at 11:42, hair still damp, wearing a blouse I didn't recognize. Her face froze when she saw her mother already sitting at the table. "You didn't tell me she was coming," she said sharply. "You didn't tell me you were lying about your meetings," I replied without looking up. Nadine turned her head. "Excuse me." Darcy's face turned pale. "What's going on?" "I figured this was a good time," I said casually, placing a small envelope next to Nadine's plate. Family should be included in the big moments. Darcy rushed forward. "What is that?" Nadine opened it slowly. Inside was a printed photo, the one from outside Belmare. Darcy and Kellen, holding hands, smiling, his lips brushing her temple. There was no explosion, no yelling, just silence. Heavy, drenched in discomfort. Darcy's world shrank by the second. Her mother's lips tightened. She looked at her daughter like she was seeing her for the first time. "Is this why you've been pushing him away?" she asked coldly. "Because you already had someone else?" Darcy tried to grab the photo. I didn't let her. She spun to me. "What are you trying to do? Humiliate me in front of my mother?" I stood, calm, steady. "You did that on your own," I said. "I just handed out the seating chart." She stared at me, breathing fast. "This isn't how you fix things." "Oh, I'm not trying to fix anything," I replied. "I just thought Nadine deserved to see what kind of woman her daughter turned into before she sits in a lawyer's office signing affidavits." Nadine stood up. "I'll leave," she said quietly. "But we will talk about this, Darcy. This isn't just about your marriage. This is about your reputation." Darcy didn't say a word. Nadine walked out without looking back. She didn't even touch her mimosa. Darcy slowly sat down. Her face was still, but her knuckles were white around the rim of her coffee cup. "You've been planning this," she said. "I had to," I replied. "Because every time I gave you a chance to talk to me, to tell me the truth, you laughed in my face." She looked up. There was no more condescension in her voice. No performance. "Do you still love me?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. The truth was complicated. "I love the version of you that used to believe in us," I said. "But I don't even recognize who you are now. You humiliated me. You made me feel disposable, replaceable. And now you're angry that I finally stood up for myself." She dropped her gaze. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Yes, you did," I said. "You just didn't expect me to do something about it." She looked up again. There was something different in her eyes now. Not rage. Not remorse. Fear. Because I wasn't yelling. Because I wasn't begging. Because she could feel it, the shift. The narrative she tried to control was slipping away. And she didn't know what came next. But I did. 3 days after the brunch, the silence in our apartment was unlike any I had ever experienced. Not hostile. Not cold. Just empty. Darcy had retreated to the guest room. She tiptoed through the kitchen like I was a stranger renting her space. The woman who used to tell me what she wanted for dinner without asking what I wanted at all, suddenly couldn't even look me in the eye. She knew it was coming. I didn't scream. I didn't demand apologies. I just kept going, quiet and consistent, the way I always had. Only this time, not to keep the marriage afloat, but to finally step away from it, knowing I had done everything I could. And more. Ashlyn came by with a flash drive. It held everything. Time-stamped emails, meeting locations, calendar inconsistencies, even a short clip where Kellen was overheard talking about keeping Darcy close. It was everything Camille needed. 2 days later, I received a short, professional message from Camille herself. It's done. He's out. Quiet resignation accepted. Contract voided. She won't have his protection anymore. That evening, Darcy came home with a face like glass, glossy, fragile, about to crack. I got a call from HR, she said, standing near the door like a child about to admit something terrible. They're opening a formal review. Kellen's been removed. I said nothing. She hesitated. Did you have something to do with that? No, I said. You did. And then I handed her the divorce papers. No big speech. No long explanation. She already knew why. Her hands trembled. She sat down like the wind had left her body. I don't know who I am without this job. I leaned against the counter. Maybe that's something you should have thought about before gambling everything on a man who saw you as expendable. I didn't think you'd ever walk away, she whispered. I know, I said. That was your mistake. There was a pause. Then, to my surprise, she nodded. I think I need help, she said. For real. I've been awful. It didn't fix anything. It didn't change what she'd done. But I saw something in her I hadn't seen in months, sincerity. Maybe even humility. Too late for us, but maybe not too late for her. We signed everything 2 weeks later. Quietly. No courtroom drama. No public mess. She moved out. I stayed in the apartment, at least for a while. Ashlyn helped me repaint the place. We pulled down the framed photos, replaced the couch, changed the layout completely. Not to erase the past, but to stop living in it. One day, I found a letter on my doorstep. It was from Nadine, Darcy's mother. You were always good to her. I see that now. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. It meant more than I wanted to admit. And then came the real turning point. Ashlyn and I started seeing more of each other. Not in a storybook romance kind of way. Just coffee, long walks, quiet companionship. The kind that doesn't ask for anything. It just shows up. She never tried to fill the space Darcy left behind. She helped me rebuild something new. Instead, months passed. I started sleeping better, laughing more. I remembered who I was before being reduced to a punchline at a dinner party. I got a better job, one that didn't crush my spirit. I traveled a little, picked up my guitar again, even signed up for a weekend pottery class. No one in my life now would call me emotionally distant. If anything, I finally showed up for myself. And as for Darcy, last I heard, she moved in with a cousin in Vermont. She never reached out again, never tried to fight the settlement. Maybe she knew she'd already lost more than she thought she would. And me? I'm free. Not in the petty, look who won kind of way, but in the deep, quiet, earned kind of way. The kind of freedom that only comes after you've been broken, rebuilt, and come out the other side stronger. So, Reddit, that's my story. I used to be a placeholder. Now, I'm the headline of my own life.